Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast talking about why we love living in Flagler and also spotlighting local businesses on why they love running their business in Flagler. So I'm super honored to have my guest Taylor with me. I met Taylor, what it was about maybe 2-ish weeks ago at one of the first Fridays over at Flagler Beach. And she just had the cutest booth with her friend. Is it Kristen?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys just had the coolest booth over there, and we got to talking. We both love Taylor Swift, which is like an instant friendship, you know? It was just like something about that. And she was telling a little bit about her journey into real estate. So thank you, Taylor, for coming on and sharing a few minutes with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This is actually the first podcast I've ever done. And I had
Wow.
a podcast on my vision board this year, as I was telling you. So
Hmm.
I feel like that kind of manifested
Yeah.
in time for the end of the year. So fully completed the vision board.
Oh, there we go. Round of applause. That's always a great what's it, achievement. That's so cool. Yeah, you were telling me a little bit on how you love podcasts. And I was like, yeah, I would love to have you on as a guest. Um, you were telling so you were pretty much raised in Florida, is what you were telling me, a really long time. So I'm sure you've seen Flagler just completely change over the past few years.
Oh yeah, it's been really cool to watch. I mean, we've had some mixed reactions for sure.
Right.
Um, but looking back on what Flagler County used to be like and looking at it now, say
Mm-hmm.
like 20 years later, is really cool because it is quite different, but I feel like different in a pretty overall good way. The population's expanded quite a lot in the last 20 years. So that's been really cool to watch and just cool to watch it change overall as a county.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, people were telling me that like was it maybe like 10-ish years ago the Target wasn't there or something like that. Like different things are like so new and like we're now expanding even more because we have the BJ's opening up on 100, which is they're taking up a lot of space. So that's going to be pretty crazy for Palm Coast for Flagler.
Oh yeah, if you look back on like what stores and restaurants were here and what's like here now,
Mm-hmm.
like crazy because you kind of remember in your head like, oh, the Chick-fil-A used to be a Perkins or something.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then like we didn't have a Chick-fil-A for the longest time. We didn't have like quite a few places and then they
Mm-hmm.
started kind of rolling in. I remember when they put in like the Bath and Body Works. We didn't have that for
Oh,
the longest time.
yeah.
It's just little things like that that you're like, oh, we're really growing.
Yeah, I completely understand. That's how a lot of it was like where I'm from in Michigan. And especially for my mom, she was pretty much raised in that suburban area. We're like 45 minutes from Detroit. And she was like, yeah, all of this used to be farm. And I was like, I can't even fathom that. But even looking back, thinking now, like 20 years ago, it was completely different to what it is now. It's grown even more than it did for my mom's age, which is like, wow, it's a weird concept to think about.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you were telling me a little bit. So you got your start in title, but now you're a real estate agent. How have you liked being in real estate? What attracted you to real estate?
So I always looked at the field of real estate as a possibility for
Mm-hmm.
me, just because I did grow up somewhat surrounded by the industry. No one in my family was a real estate agent, but I had
Mm-hmm.
people around me in every other piece of the industry. So it was always a possibility for me to get my license, maybe pursue real estate as a career. But it really came to mind for me when honestly all of the shows started coming out about it. It became like a really big topic in the media when we didn't really see the industry discussed in mainstream media a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There was like the occasional, article in
Right.
Forbes, Business Insider, like when you were looking for it, it was there. But we saw real estate come really mainstream in the last 5, 10 years as an industry. And that really like piqued my interest in it. So I got a job at a title company, which is always what I recommend people doing if you're looking at a field that requires schooling, licensing, anything like that. get a job in that field where you don't have to have that schooling and licensing, but the work is still in front of you, and see if you enjoy it. And for me, I really found it fascinating. Um, the title background gave me, I think, a little leg up because I know the paperwork so well from staring
Right.
every day. Um,
Yeah.
and while I was working there, I worked on my real estate license and got licensed and started selling some houses.
That's great. What have you liked about being in real estate? Like, I think you were telling me you really enjoy the connections and talking to people. And I know a lot of salespeople, that's really where their joy is.
And I think that's really something that, you either are really good in sales or you're just, it's not for you.
Hmm.
And that's the part that I love the most, is meeting these people, finding out their story, why they need to move out of this house and buy this house, why they need to sell this house and move out of state, why everybody has a different story, and their home is such a big part of that story that a lot of people don't even realize. A
Hmm.
lot of people do realize it and they're like, wow, I've lived in this home for 25 years. I like this, moving out's going to be really hard.
Right.
Um, but it's such a big part of someone's life and someone's story. So to be part of that chapter is really special.
Yeah, so growing up, my dad worked a lot with real estate and mortgage agents. And I'm telling you that I started my podcast about 3 years ago. And when I started, I was primarily not focusing, but I ended up interviewing a lot of real estate professionals, a lot of mortgage professionals. And a lot of them are sharing that it was just so fulfilling to see them be part of such a big purchase, be part of such a big moment in people's lives. It's so titular, like everyone kind of remembers that first house they bought, right? Or that recent house that they bought. Like we just bought this house, I want to say about less than 2 years ago. And it was such an insane process. But I'm sure being a real estate agent, seeing that transform families' lives is so impactful. Would that be true?
Absolutely. And I mean, you see this step in people's journeys, and it's so fulfilling to be a part of, truly, because this is the home where, say, this couple just got married and they're going to find their first starter home together and their
Right.
first home buyers. And this is like the biggest achievement that they're going to check off on their list as a newly married couple.
Hmm.
Or someone needs a bigger house because their family is expanding and this is, the next house where they're going to raise their kids. Or someone's retiring to Florida and they're going to buy a condo and just live the retired life by the beach. It's the next chapter in someone's journey, and it's really special to hear these people's stories and to be a part of that journey and to just help them as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, and I think a really big part a lot of the real estate agents were telling me is that they don't want to just be this one and done transaction for this family. They want to be a part of their life forever. Because sometimes people have kids, those kids need houses, or something like that, or they want to downsize or they want to upgrade. And I feel like you definitely seem the type that you want to have that relationship with your client, someone who wants to check in and be like, hey, it's been a while. I would love to just appreciate you as a person, appreciate you as a client, and just keep in touch even as the years go on and it's been so long. Is that something that you like to do as well when you think about the relationships in the real estate industry?
Absolutely. And it's really, I mean, it is about the houses to an extent, but
Right.
the state is really about the people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like the center of our business, is the people, because
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of houses to go around. There's plenty of houses that we're going to look at, but there's only these people.
Mm-hmm.
It's about them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's really important in any business is to look at it with the relationship building in mind and have that focus because people can tell when it's not your focus. That's why there's so many real estate agents and people always want to go to someone who makes them feel special, who makes them feel cared for. And I mean, I know that was definitely the case when we were picking our real estate agent, is we wanted someone who we could tell was looking for our best interest.
exactly. And it is, I mean, people have that sense of like, are you putting on a front, or
Yeah.
Are you genuinely interested, like, in hearing why I need what I need?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for X, Y, and Z, why these are the things that are important to us, because everybody has their whys behind that
Mm-hmm.
wish list, behind all of that.
Yeah. And this is true for any field in life. It doesn't have to be any specific thing or any specific person. It's different parts of our lives. You can tell when someone's there for a really great relationship or if someone's there for, just a season, and it's just the cycle of life. Um, but yeah, so Taylor, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a few minutes with me. This has been really fun and I've really enjoyed our conversation on learning a little bit more about real estate, learning more about different ways people do business. And also, it's so cool whenever I talk to someone who's been in Flagler for more than like 2 days, like me, on how it's changed. Because I just like, it's my first question. I know you guys, I'm sure, sick of hearing it, but it's so interesting for me to see how you guys felt about the whole shift throughout the years, shift throughout the seasons, and things like that.
Yeah, never sick of hearing it, by the way. I love
It's good to
talking about it,
know. That's good to know. I get so nervous and I'm like, well, I'm so curious, but I don't want to bother them.
but I can tell you it is a loaded question for a lot of people,
Mm,
because I mean, it's anything that's changing over the years. Some people are going to be fine with it, and some people are going to absolutely hate it and be like, well, why did this have to change? Why did this have to change? And it's going to depend, obviously, on the project, on the scenario, on whatever it is for me.
right.
But overall, I have a pretty positive outlook on change, just
That's
because I mean,
good.
that's how we grow,
Sure.
that's how things improve. So I am a pretty big proponent for growth and change, typically, as long as it's done right.
Exactly. Yeah, and definitely for the right reasons as well. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a few minutes and for letting me be the honor of being your first ever podcast. I'm sure there's many more in your midst. And this has been really fun for me. So thank you again for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me
Of
on, truly.
course. Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll see you all next time. Thank you.